What would you do if you saw your loved one under attack? Would you run to safety, or would you turn back to help, knowing it might cost you everything? By the way, I'm curious, where are you tuning in from? Drop a quick comment, I read them all, and sometimes your ideas spark our next case. On a peaceful Saturday morning at Devil's Den State Park in Arkansas, the Brink family set out for what should have been a simple family hike. Clinton, 43, and Cristen, 41, had recently moved to Arkansas with their 3 daughters. They were eager to explore their new home state's natural beauty. The couple had packed their hiking gear and grabbed their 2 youngest girls, ages 7 and 9. They headed to one of Arkansas's most scenic parks. Devil's Den State Park sprawls across 2,500 acres of rugged Ozark Mountains terrain. Its thick vegetation, limestone caves, and cascading waterfalls draw thousands of visitors each year. The park's Devil's Den Trail, a moderate 1.5-mile loop, seemed perfect for a family adventure. But that Saturday would transform this peaceful refuge into the scene of an unthinkable tragedy. The Brink family began their hike on the Devil's Den Trail around midday. The trail winds through dense forest where cell phone service doesn't reach. For families seeking to disconnect from the digital world, it's an ideal retreat. For the Brinks, this isolation would soon become a terrifying disadvantage. Clinton and Cristen had met years earlier and built a life centered around their children. Friends described Clinton as a devoted father who loved outdoor adventures. Cristen was known for her fierce protective instincts and unwavering loyalty to her family. Their recent move to Arkansas represented a fresh start. A chance to build new memories in a place they'd chosen together. The family had been hiking for about half a mile when their peaceful morning shattered. According to police, Clinton was attacked first. The assault came without warning, without provocation. A stranger had been lurking on the trail, waiting. What happened next reveals the extraordinary courage of a mother faced with an impossible choice. Cristen immediately moved to protect her daughters, guiding them away from the attack. She got them to safety, ensuring they were out of immediate danger. But then she made a decision that would cost her everything. She went back into danger. The mother did not return all the way to the car with the kids, Arkansas State Police Major Stacy Rhodes explained at a press conference. We believe that the mother took them to safety and then returned to help her husband. Picture yourself in that moment. Your children are safe, but your spouse is under attack. Every instinct tells you to stay with your kids, to get as far away as possible. But love doesn't always follow logic. Cristen Brink chose love over safety. The attacker was later identified as Andrew James McGann, a 28-year-old man with no apparent connection to the Brink family. McGann had recently moved to Arkansas from Oklahoma. He was set to begin teaching elementary school in the Springdale Public Schools district. On paper, he seemed unremarkable, a young educator starting fresh in a new state. But McGann's background revealed troubling patterns. He had worked at multiple school districts across Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas since 2022. In Texas, he'd been placed on administrative leave following concerns about classroom management, professional judgment, and student favoritism. One parent later described unsettling behavior. This included special lunch meetings with select female students and encouraging girls to sit in his lap. Despite these red flags, McGann had passed all required background checks. He moved from district to district, leaving behind a trail of concerned parents and unanswered questions. His most recent position was at Sand Springs Public Schools in Oklahoma. There he taught 5th grade until resigning in May to move to Arkansas. On that Saturday at Devil's Den, McGann was carrying knives. Investigators believe he had planned the attack carefully. He had even placed tape on his car's license plate to obscure its identification. Yet for all his apparent preparation, he would prove surprisingly careless in covering his tracks. The attack on the Brink family was swift and brutal. Both Clinton and Cristen suffered fatal injuries. McGann sustained injuries during the assault, leaving behind crucial DNA evidence that would later seal his fate. The physical evidence told a story of desperate and brutal struggle. The couple's two young daughters, having been moved to safety by their mother, encountered another hiker on the trail. These children had just witnessed the most horrific trauma imaginable. Yet somehow they found the strength to tell this stranger what had happened. Their bravery in those crucial moments would prove instrumental in bringing their parents' killer to justice. The hiker immediately took the girls to safety, then returned to search for Clinton and Cristen. What they found confirmed the children's devastating account. With no cell service in that part of the park, precious time passed before authorities could be contacted. When police finally arrived, they discovered a crime scene that would haunt seasoned investigators. A trail of blood led away from where the bodies were found. Witnesses reported seeing a man leaving the area with blood on his face. He was getting into a black sedan later identified as a Kia Stinger. Despite the tape covering parts of the license plate, observant witnesses provided enough details to begin tracking the vehicle. The manhunt that followed would span 4 intense days. Police worked around the clock, following up on hundreds of tips from the public. The investigation led them through Arkansas vehicle registration records. They gradually narrowed their focus to McGann. During those 4 days, McGann appeared to be trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. He was staying in the Springdale area, about 30 miles from Devil's Den State Park. Perhaps he believed the remote location and lack of cell service would buy him time. Perhaps he thought the tape on his license plate had been sufficient disguise. He was wrong on both counts. On Wednesday, for days after the murders, McGann walked into Lupita's beauty salon and barber shop in Springdale. He was lanky, with stringy blonde hair, and he asked for a fade. The stylist, Adriana Ruiz, later told reporters that something felt off about him immediately. He looked pretty scary, Ruiz recalled. He didn't look like he was okay. He was very timid. His eyes just looked sunken. Kind of like, soulless. McGann had been in the chair for about 5 minutes when plainclothes officers walked into the salon. They asked whose black car was parked outside. McGann hesitated, then admitted it was his. Within moments, he was in handcuffs. The arrest was anticlimactic compared to the intensity of the manhunt. McGann didn't resist. He didn't run. Surveillance video from the salon showed him cooperating fully as officers took him into custody. For a man who had allegedly committed such violent acts, his surrender was remarkably passive. But the evidence against McGann was overwhelming. Police found blood in his car that matched the victim's. Officers noticed fresh cuts on his hands. Most damning of all, McGann's DNA matched samples collected from the crime scene. When investigators searched his home, they discovered items consistent with involvement in the murders. After being read his Miranda rights, McGann made statements indicating he had committed the killings. Arkansas State Police Director Mike Hagar would later describe it as an admission of guilt. The case that had terrified an entire region was solved, but the damage was irreversible. The randomness of the attack makes it particularly chilling. Investigators found no evidence that McGann had any prior connection to the Brink family. They hadn't crossed paths before that fatal Saturday. This wasn't revenge, wasn't personal vendetta, wasn't robbery gone wrong. It was simply evil choosing innocent targets. Prosecutor Brandon Carter has announced his intention to seek the death penalty. The case, he says, contains the aggravating factors that warrant allowing a jury to decide McGann's ultimate punishment. McGann's first court appearance was brief. He wore a striped jail uniform, acknowledged his name, and was assigned a public defender. The legal process will unfold slowly, but the immediate focus remains on the 3 daughters left behind. 2 witnessed their parents' final moments. All 3 must now navigate a world without the mother and father who died protecting them. They absolutely protected those girls to their fullest extent, to the point that it cost them their lives, Carter said. We're in awe of this mom and dad. We're also in awe of these girls. The children are now in the care of extended family members. Officials emphasize that they have strong support systems in place. However, no amount of support can truly heal such devastating loss. These girls will carry the memory of their parents' sacrifice for the rest of their lives. What drives someone to commit such senseless violence? The question haunts investigators and the public alike. McGann had no criminal history, no documented mental health issues that might explain his actions. His employment history showed concerning patterns, but nothing that predicted this level of violence. Perhaps that's the most unsettling aspect of this case. Evil doesn't always announce itself with obvious warning signs. Sometimes it wears the face of an elementary school teacher, passes background checks, and blends into everyday life. Until the moment it chooses to strike. The heroism displayed by Cristen and Cristen Brink stands in stark contrast to the senseless cruelty of their attacker. In their final moments, faced with unimaginable terror, they chose to protect what mattered most. Cristen fought to defend his family. Cristen ensured her children's safety, then returned to help her husband, knowing the danger. Their sacrifice saved their daughters' lives. In a world where headlines often focus on humanity's darkest impulses, the Brink story reminds us that love and courage can triumph even in our final moments. They died as they lived, putting their children first, facing danger together. The trails at Devil's Den State Park remain closed as the investigation concludes. Eventually, families will return to hike these paths. They will enjoy the natural beauty that drew the Brinks there on that tragic Saturday. But for those who knew Cristen and Cristen, these mountains will forever hold the memory of parents who chose love over safety, courage over retreat. In the end, perhaps that's how they would want to be remembered. Not as victims of senseless violence, but as heroes who saved their children when it mattered most.
If you enjoy deep dives into true crime, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Until next time, friends!